Hello, this is Andrea for the Learning Bear Podcast, your resource for wild professional development. Today we're going to be talking about 3 books that I struggled to read, and we'll talk about why in just a second. So I want to tell you what these books are, kind of give you a summary, and the positives about those books, even though they were really hard, and then sort of reflect and analyze why these things are hard and also why we need to read them. So the first I read in this series of terrible events was Coyote America, A Supernatural and Natural History by Dan Flores. He delivers the history in a brutally honest fashion. Up to that point, before I read this book, I had read some kind of like lighthearted nonfiction books, and going into reading Coyote America, I thought, am I going to be able to handle this? Because it's pretty bad. The depths of the destruction are just, they seem bottomless. But again, we're going to look at the positive. So Flores is thorough to a fault. He is very honest and detailed and thoughtful about the coyote's history. He reflects on his personal experiences with coyotes both in Louisiana as a child and in New Mexico as an adult. He writes these powerful lines within a book that are very deep and thought-provoking, and I appreciate that. He also discusses the Native American culture, which I think is really important when you're talking about any sort of history of the United States. And the coyote is very sacred to them. The coyote plays a role of a faulted deity. The deity is not perfect by any means, but it's very important for their culture. And some of the stories that he includes are interesting. We'll leave it at that. So, it was hard. It was really hard to read because we, as humans, have done terrible things to coyotes, but I appreciate his passion, and that's important when you're writing such a sad book like that. The second book that I read that I'm going to tell you about is Bequest by Dave Goulson, and this one is by no means as depressing as the Coyote America book. He has this innate passion and excitement for bees and all things that are creepy crawly, except big spiders, which he says honestly, which I appreciate. He's also very funny. When he talks about bee porn, which is kind of funny, and you have to read it to understand why that's funny. He's very descriptive. It almost feels like you're on the adventure with him, which is fun, and I appreciate that too, because it makes it more enjoyable, because nonfiction books, they're nonfiction. There's nothing, there's no superheroes or magic involved in them. It's just somebody's life. So I really like that book, and it's kind of interesting that I would include that with these other 2 books, because it's not depressing, but habitat loss and the invasion of invasive species in a lot of places has caused bee species to decline drastically, and it's really, really sad, and it kind of breaks my heart, to be honest, because if we don't have bees, we're kind of screwed, quite frankly. The last one, and I just finished this today, was Wolf Nation by Brenda Peterson. And if I thought the Coyote America book was sad, this one's way worse. It is sad. It is sadder and more tortured than the Coyote story, which I would never have guessed that was possible prior to reading this. Brenda Peterson the author talks about this history with the native people, which I appreciate. And again, it's kind of in a form of a deity, which is cool. I really like that. The nicety is really in there because the American people have just wreaked terrible havoc on wolves because they're scared. They're scared of losing money. They're basically just scared of losing money. That's pretty much it. So terrible, terrible ways that they murder these wolves that are just living their best wolf life. But some positives are her research and her attention to detail, which is true of any of these books that I'm mentioning. She's honest. She doesn't hide or mislead the reader from the truth of what Americans, often in the name of freedom, are doing to these predators. I like the stories of the Yellowstone wolves, and there was another wolf from Oregon that she talks about as well. It's very impressive how thoughtful she is and how well-rounded she is and how many people she talked to. So just like in the other books too, their research had no limitations. They were going wherever it took them, and I appreciate that. So why is it important to read? If you're thinking, why did you put yourself through this if you know they were going to be bad? As an educator of sorts, I think it's important to take the good with the bad. The vegetables with your dessert, if you will. Although I do like vegetables. But it's really, really sad how ignorant we are as people, considering that we think of ourselves so highly. So it's humbling to remember the destruction that our species has caused on all of these. I mean, wolves, coyotes, and bees are not the only populations that are affected by us. They are definitely near the top, I would estimate, but they're not the only ones. So I think it's important to remember where we're coming from, so you know where you're going. I think it's important to have all of that history behind you as you start to make a decision about something. It's definitely going to change how I teach about predator-prey relationships. I mean, I've always thought predators were important, and I think wolves and coyotes, probably to a lesser extent, but wolves certainly are just so majestic. Predators are so cool, and they're so valuable, and an ecosystem needs predators in order to stay healthy. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. Read a book. I promise you will find that out to be true. So it's going to change my teaching. It's going to change how I present information. I read the coyote book because coyotes are prevalent in my home state, or they used to be. I don't know if they still are. I should probably look into that. And I thought it would be really good information as I move back to my home state from where I live now. And I think I could be a more passionate and smarter person having read these, even though it hit me in the heart pretty hard. And I haven't forgotten about the poisoned coyotes that lost their hair and went blind and were huddling in a circle. And I definitely won't forget Blanca, the wolf, who had multiple lassos around her neck, and horsemen drove off in different directions and completely ripped her head off. So I won't forget that stuff either. It's going to make me a better educator. I don't know if it would make me a better person by extension, but probably. So I guess I wanted to talk about this to impress upon people to read stuff that challenges you, read stuff that maybe makes you sad, read stuff that isn't just warm and fuzzy grape sunshine, rainbows, unicorns all the time, because the reality is life isn't all rainbows, sunshine, grapes, unicorns, whatever. It's just not. And if you've lived any length of time at all, you know that. So check these books out if you have the guts. Bequest by Dave Goulson, Coyote America by Dave Flores, and Wolf Nation by Brenda Peterson. Check them out. Have a great day, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.